Hi, this is Bobby Kimbrough, and once again, welcome to Off the Cuffs. Today, we're very fortunate, and I'm very excited to have with me Mr. Jim O'Neill, the District Attorney for Forsyth County. I want to welcome you to the show, Mr. O'Neill.
Thank you for having me, Sheriff Kimbrough. It's an honor.
Yes, sir. So, we bring guests on from all walks of life, from all different professions, and we bring them on to discuss a lot of issues that are happening throughout the country and the state and in our county, specifically in this county. And so when we were looking down our invites and I saw your name, the question that came to my mind, I know who Jim O'Neill is, but the men and women that watch this podcast, that listen to this podcast. So tell us, who is Jim O'Neill? Tell us something about you.
Well, Jim O'Neill first got to North Carolina by way of an athletic scholarship over at Duke, playing a game called lacrosse.
Okay.
Originally, I was born in the Bronx, New York, raised on Long Island, and lacrosse was a sport that, it's sort of like the way football is down here. Everybody played it up there, and I was blessed enough to get an opportunity to come down to get introduced to North Carolina, and it was through Duke, and that was my initial introduction here. And since that time, I went back to New York and got my law degree at New York Law School, and came back to North Carolina as soon as I was able to pay off my law loans and do what I really wanted to do, which was serve the community as a prosecutor.
So, a lot of people, what is the prosecutor? What is the district attorney for a county? I mean, who is he? What does he do? I mean, what type of authority does he or she have in a county? What do you do?
Well, we're described in case law as being the ministers of justice. And being the ministers of justice, we work with law enforcement like the Sheriff's Department and the Police Department and ABC and ALE and every other agency you can imagine that would make and investigate cases in Forsyth County. And when law enforcement is putting together a case, they come and they sit with our office, and we make a decision whether or not we think probable cause exists to charge somebody with a crime. But as a minister of justice, many times it may also mean that you don't have enough probable cause, and you either have to dismiss the case or advise law enforcement that the investigation needs to come to an end.
So when you say the minister of justice, the thing that comes to my mind is the lady with the sword in her hand with the scarf over her eyes that she can't see. So she is administering justice fair and balanced. And a lot of people say, well, sometimes justice is not fair. Sometimes justice is not blind. And so being a resident of this county, I must be honest, I see a lot of violence that we're experiencing right now in this county. Myself, trying to combat that and stop that. The people want to know, what are we doing? What are you doing about that as the district attorney? What is your role in the scheme of things?
So I've been with this district attorney's office for the last 23 years, the last 10 or 11 as the district attorney. And so what we have seen over the years is that in this community, we average about 25, what we would describe as homicides a year. And we're on, I believe in this county now we have about 24 so far. But we still got another month and a half to go in this year. So we're sort of on pace, if you will, for where we've been in the past. But what we've seen, unfortunately, now in the last 10 days or so is a real uptick in some drive-by shootings and things of that nature. And, of course, as the district attorney, that's an upsetting thing to see in your community. We live here. My kids go to school, public schools here, and this is a place that we love. And we want to keep it as safe as we can for our friends, our family, our neighbors, our community at large. One of the things that I think is worth mentioning is that the Charlotte News and Observer ran a 5-part series recently, and they looked at violence across the state of North Carolina and how the district attorney's offices were responding to these incidences of violence committed with guns. And I was very happy and pleased to see that Forsyth County, when you look at all these urban places you could live in North Carolina, we had the lowest dismissal rate when it comes to crimes of violence, because I believe that if you have limited resources, and as a government agency, we all have limited resources, you have to figure out where is the best place for you to put your money. Where do you put your people? Where do you put your energy? Where do you put your resources? And, we believe firmly, and I have believed, that you put your resources as a prosecutor in stopping the violent crime that takes people's lives, crimes that where you talk about sexual assaults and things of that nature. And so that's where we put our emphasis, is on keeping people safe.
Well, I've known you for several years. I have. And while there may be a different letter behind our names as it relates to our affiliations, party affiliation, the question I have for you is that I've seen you in a lot of settings. I've seen how you operate, and I can honestly say that you have a good heart. I've seen you make decisions that were not popular. I've seen you make decisions that were hard decisions. And I appreciate you for being what I call what you call the minister of justice. But a lot of people are sitting at homes and listening to this and watching this are going to ask the question, so when you have a case and you have to make a decision on whether or not we're going to charge this person or whether we're going to let this person go, does adjectives or the scripts enter your mind, race, color, where they're from, affiliation, does that ever enter your mind, or do you try, or do you always maintain that sure balance of what is fair, what is right?
Well, I certainly strive to be balanced, and that's important to me. I don't wear it on my sleeve, but I'm a person of immense faith. Get myself to church and drag my three little rascals off to church with me every Sunday, to be sure that we stay grounded. But when I go back to my comments earlier about how I first got to North Carolina, it was through lacrosse, and since that time I have given my own time, personal time, to teaching lacrosse here to elementary school and high school kids, and I've been the Reynolds lacrosse coach now for the last 11 or 12 years. I'm not really sure, but it's been there a long time. And before that, at Bishop McGinnis. And in my world, I have kids that come to Reynolds and want to play lacrosse and come out and play. That they're from all over the county, and many times, some of these kids that live in East Winston, I'm the person who takes them home at night and gets them to their house, or gets them some dinner or something on the way home, and then takes them to their house. And it's upsetting when I talk to some of these young guys, and they tell me that they don't feel safe going out on the front porch at night, and weekends they try to stay in the house, and that's that strikes at me, and it strikes my heart. And so when you're talking about being fair and balanced, I sort of have a unique perspective, I think, on it, because of the closeness and affinity that I feel for some of these young men, and I want to be sure that everybody feels good in this community, and everybody can go out on their porch at night. Everybody can go someplace on a Saturday and not have to worry about their personal safety.
Well, I have a question. I have to ask this question, and being fair to the listeners and being fair to myself. So in life, we all don't begin at the same place. In life, we don't all arrive at the same place at the same time. And sometimes in life, some of us, or sometimes people, have indiscretions that they made in life that keep them from getting jobs, that keep them from doing certain things. One of the things that I know that is not commonly known is that the district attorney, the people have given the district attorney, and the law has given the district attorney a lot of authority. And so a lot of authority has been given to you. So how do you apply that when we talk about giving people second chances? We see people every day that are good people, hardworking people, that made mistakes years ago in their life that for some reason or another, they can't get a job. For some reason or another, they don't have the money or the resources to pay a fine. And so how do you use the administering that justice to try to help those that don't have access to the system and resources?
So a couple of years ago, I looked at, and I'm a person who also feels that you have to, in order to have self-worth in life, you need a job. Jobs are very important.
So true.
And we looked at, I met with some friends that are, at that time it was known as the Black Ministers Conference. Now it's known as the Ministers Conference of Winston-Salem. But back then I got together with a couple of friends that served as ministers there. And I said, listen, we're in here in Winston-Salem. There are people that are driving every day. They don't have their driver's license. We need to try and help some of these people. If we could get them restored, their licenses restored, we could help them get some jobs. We could help them go back and finish their schooling. We could help them get into perhaps Forsyth Tech and complete a GED or go on and get an associate's degree. So they were very receptive to the idea. There was nothing going on like that anywhere in North Carolina. And so we put out some feelers to the congregations here in town, and we expected that first day we'd have about 25 people show up looking for assistance to get their license cleaned up. Instead, we had about 250.
Wow.
And we were overwhelmed by the amount of people that needed help. And as a funny side note, we only were prepared to help 25. And so my friends there in the conference asked me to go out and make the announcement to the other 225 that they were going to get their licenses back today. So, but I also told the crowd, anybody that's here and is working to try and get their license back, we're going to help you.
Were you all successful with that?
We were immensely successful. We ended up clearing out. We had to go back and clear out people's licenses because just like you said, there are times in people's lives where they can't afford to pay a seatbelt ticket.
True.
And that's if they let that lapse and they don't take care of that, their license, DMV will revoke their license. Then they'll get pulled over for speeding or running a stop sign or something, just run-of-the-mill type things. And it starts this terrible cycle. And I call it the spin cycle because you can't get out. Once you start getting that license revoked, every time you pick up a charge, you get revoked by DMV for another 3 years. So it took my office going back and doing the research to figure out why every person that was showing up there, why their license was revoked. And it was painstaking. But we ended up dismissing, more than 100,000 tickets, and which cleaned up people's backgrounds, which put them in a position where they were able to then go down to DMV and get a driver's license. And it was also very from our perspective, it was very emotional when these people were showing back up at our office and proudly displaying their driver's license, tears coming down their eyes, because they were given a chance here, and it really made all the difference to them, and it had quite an impact on us as well.
Well, so I got a question for you. You've been here for quite some time from New York. You've been a resident here. You know the inner workings of Forsyth County. You see it from various levels. So my question is this. One of the things that we talk about is transparency. We talk about we can't transform people until we become transparent. We can't talk about elephants in rooms until we talk about the elephants in the room. We really are not moving the needle until we address them. So my question to you is simple. If you look around the county, look around the city, what are some of the issues that you see?
Well, I think in terms of the criminal law, is that what you're asking me?
Whether it be criminal, whether it be social, whether it be the line is too long at McDonald's, whatever it is that you want to speak to, because I'm going somewhere with it.
Okay. Well, I draw back to my experience coaching some of these men in lacrosse. we had a young man who was on our team who was having some problems in a math class, and I got word through the athletic director that he was struggling in math and not pulling the grades, and this was a kid who now is in college playing lacrosse.
Wow.
But in high school a couple of years ago, he was not doing well in math. So I asked for a meeting with the guidance counselor, the player, and try and figure out what the problem was here. And he came in and we sat down, and I said, so to the guidance counselor, what do you think is the problem here? And she said, it's attendance. His attendance is so bad. And I turned to him, I said, that's unacceptable that you're not getting here on time. And he said, Coach, I come to school every day. I said, well, if you're coming to school every day, how come they're marking you absent first period? And he said, well, that class starts at 8:15, but my bus doesn't pick me up till 8:45. And my mouth almost dropped. I turned to the guidance counselor and I said, that can't be right? And she said, no, that's part of it. We got a problem with transportation getting the kids to school. So this kid who, first generation, first opportunity to get to college, and lacrosse was going well, and we were just staying on about his academics to be sure he could get that opportunity in life. And I was, shocked to find out that we didn't have enough bus drivers to make it possible to have all the kids there arrive on time.
Wow.
And yet they were punishing a kid
for getting to school late.
Yes, sir. So, so the schools are always struggling in terms of trying to find bus drivers, and they're struggling in terms of keeping good teachers. Again, I'm a big believer in the public school system, and when you send your kid off to school during the day, that's your child is there for 6, 7, 8 hours. But the question then becomes, what happens and what is your child doing from 3 o'clock on till the time you may get home from work as a parent, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock at night. And I think that's a real challenge that our community is facing. We're not the only ones. Lots of communities face this, but if a high school kid has got that time open and he's not playing sports, she's not playing sports, not involved in any clubs after school, what are they doing? And I think it boils back down to idle hands. Idle hands are the devil's workshop.
Right.
And so I think that is something that, and I know it's something you think about quite a bit as well, because you've been in law enforcement, a lifetime, and you see the same things that I do, which is, what are these kids going to be doing from 3 o'clock until the time a supervisor or parental supervision comes home?
So when I look out in the county and I see the violence, the uptick, I see a population that is being uneducated sufficiently, whether they're dropping out, whether they're not having their needs met at home, whatever the case or the cause may be. I'm sure there's a plethora of causes why their needs or why this is happening. But at the end of the day, what I've said on many occasions, when people can't compete and they can't eat, they resort to crime. They resort to things that they normally wouldn't resort to. So when you look out into this county and you see the crime, you see every day at your building, you see everything from shoplifting to homicide to sexual offenses to child molestation. You see the gamut, the total A to Z. My question is, how do we fix some of the issues that we have? How do we stop some of the violence? How do we stop some of the issues that we have, whether it's the gun violence, the guns coming to school? How do we fix that? What do we say? What is the message that we send? Because people ask me every day, ring the phone every day, what are you all doing about the violence? What are you all doing about this? I see you all here. I see you all there. And I want to thank you, because I see you in a lot of places. That means that you're concerned about the community. I see you working at the detention center, some of the programs you have initiated there, some of the meetings that I've seen you in with the Ministers Association. I've seen you at some of the C2C conferences, corner to corner. I see you a lot of places, but what I want to know, and a lot of people want to know, where do we go from here? What do we need to do? Because we have young men, people of color dying in the streets, people, period. A life is a life, regardless of race, color, creed. And what I say to people all the time is that violence and crime have no boundary. If it happens in the city, it can happen in the county. And you're not just the district attorney for the city of Winston-Salem. You're not just a district attorney for the county. You are the district attorney for Forsyth County, which the city sits inside of. So you are the district attorney for the city, as well as the county, as well as all those outlying municipalities that sit within the county. And the people want to know, and I'm sure they want to know from you as well as me and a few other people that are in these leadership roles that have taken an oath to serve and protect them. What is the game plan from here? What are we doing?
Well, I think it's important for people to understand when we talked about this the data that came back out of this Charlotte Observer 5-part series. We take violent crime very seriously. I'm a person that believes in second chances. In fact, I spent much of this summer working down in Raleigh to try and get some legislation passed that would allow people to have things expunged off their record so that they would have a second chance.
What does that mean? Because a lot of people out there don't know what does expungement mean? How does that work?
Well, the way expungement works is if you were convicted, let's say, of a felony worthless check, perhaps you wrote a worthless check, 20 years ago, well, that stays on your record forever, okay? When we got together in Raleigh with some of the lawmakers, myself and 2 other elected DAs in the state, we came up with a plan and an idea of being able to help people clean out some of the nonsense or junk that they may have gotten in trouble for at 18 years of age, and that has saddled them, many years later, although they've gone on to live a good, productive life.
Right.
But they still don't, they don't want the mistakes from age 18 to haunt them as they move forward. So with myself and these other 2 DAs, we sat down, we hammered some stuff out with the legislature and some of the lobbyists we were dealing with down there, and we have come up with this, what we think is an awesome opportunity for the people in North Carolina, that would give people an opportunity to have these old convictions expunged. And what that means is, it means it's wiped off your record. So if you go for a job interview, you go for a promotion, you're trying to go back to school, and you would have a clean record and be able to tell people that your record is in fact clean.
Can you expunge more than one thing off?
Yes, sir. You'd be able to, in one fell swoop, have a number of things, actually anything on your record, as long as it's not violent crime.
Okay.
Murderers are not going to get that opportunity.
Right, of course.
Child molesters are not going to get that opportunity. So that's how we came up with it, and that's what we were able to, in a bipartisan fashion, be able to reach across the aisle and get something like that done. So we're excited about it. I know a lot of people in this community, and I get that question quite a bit. When's that legislation coming down? When's that legislation coming down? And what we're trying to do is now fine tune it a little bit so that again, people that may have limited means, being able to hire an attorney to have something expunged off your record could be an expensive proposition. So we're trying to automate it so that it'll just be done.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you know what? You're probably going to be a hit to a lot of people that's going to watch this. And here's what they're going to want to know. When is this going to happen? What do they got to do? And what's the date? So what you're saying is sometime December 1st of the year, people's record will be automatically cleaned? Or what do you, say that again, because I think that a lot of people are going to be saying, now, what did he say? Mm-hmm. So they don't have to rewind it. Say that again?
Right. So what we've done is we've got some legislation that is acceptable to everybody down in Raleigh.
Okay.
And what we're trying to do now is we're trying to automate it so that the administrative office of the courts, which runs the court system in North Carolina,
Right.
would have it on an automated basis and be able to do this upon request of somebody, to have those things, those nonviolent crimes, expunged from their record. So we're waiting on this. This is sort of where the computer technology has to come into play and make it happen, because to expunge somebody's record means that there's no sign of it down in police records or sheriff's records. There's no sign of it on a criminal background check, and so that takes that's some high-tech computer technology in order to be able to make that happen. But the important thing is that this is going to be the law, and it is at this point where it's just a matter of getting the kinks worked out as far as the computer system is concerned.
So you're saying a person's been charged, let's say, with shoplifting, worthless checks, marijuana violation, their record will be clean, and so next year they could go apply for a job even with the law enforcement agency, and their record would be, so when they ask the question, have you ever been convicted of a crime, what would the answer be then?
Well, of course, the true answer is that they have been convicted at one point, but what's going to be different now is that their criminal record is going to be clear. So, in terms of whenever you're interviewing for a job, I always think the best policy is to be truthful, but I think that we're going to have an opportunity also to be able to explain to employers that this person has a clean criminal record, or I should say a job applicant will be able to explain to an employer that they've got a clean criminal record. And it's going to be I think it's going to be an awesome thing for the citizens in the state to have an opportunity to go back and have all the nonsense that they may got in trouble at 17, 18 years old wiped out.
Couple more questions before I let you go. There's a guy at home sitting saying, so you mean to tell me that my record going to be clean, but then I'm sitting in front of the interviewer and you want me to be truthful and say, yeah, I stole a few things, I smoked a few joints, but it ain't on my record no more, so hire me.
Well, I think that, again, I always think the best policy is just to tell the truth.
Okay.
But I think it's also, we're also getting to a point in society where people recognize that you can make mistakes earlier on in life and still be a good, productive citizen. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And when people have shown this over the years, I think that's really the most important thing to consider.
Well, what I want to say as we start to wrap it up is that I'm glad that you're there. And I say that for several reasons, because regardless of what's behind our names in terms of affiliation, as an administrator of justice, as an office holder of an office, you have to and I have to apply that authority that the people have given you and I without any type of bias. We have to do what is right, not what is partisan, not what is racially motivated. And I say that because we're in different and difficult times now than 34 years ago when I entered into law enforcement. And what I'm seeing now is that this uptick in violence. We have to realize that we've got to do some different things. We've got to go back and start to incorporate all hands on deck, our schools, our mental health, the community, to stop what is happening. And so I want to thank you for what you do. I want to thank you for the leadership and your kindness that you have shown over the years that I've known you. And I applaud you for what you do, because that is a very difficult balancing act. How do you interpret the law? Because, the law to me sometimes is ambiguous at times, and depending on who's reading it, depending on their interpretation. So that is a job that I can assure you comes with many headaches and many problems. and I'm glad they're your headaches. So what I'd like to do as we start to wrap up is that anything that you want to share with our listeners and our viewers of as it relates to what you do, what they can do, and what we can do to make Forsyth County a safer and a better place to live. One of the things that I always say is that we've got to have more collaborations. Collaborations changes situations. We've got to have everybody participating in this, whether it's your office, this office, Winston office, Kernersville. We've got to have all hands on deck if we're going to sustain and make a difference in what's happening this day and time. So I'll let you close up for a few minutes before I say our farewells, if anything you want to share.
So let me first say, when the expungement piece comes into play, and the courts get that worked out and on the computer end of it, I'll be happy to come back as your guest and explain to people what they can do next, because that is life-changing for a lot of people.
Very.
And so I'd be happy to come back and explain that. We're just trying to give them a little bit of time to work out the kinks, like I said, down in Raleigh. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, this district attorney's office in Forsyth has some really, really good lawyers, and that has allowed us to have incredible data and statistics, like the highest conviction rate in the state when it comes to sexual assaults. But all of the accomplishments that the people in my office have been able to make over the years, it's because we have good partnerships and good friendships with law enforcement. We work very closely with you. As you know, you and I have known each other for 100 years.
Exactly.
And when the two people at the top send that message to everybody underneath that this is going to be a partnership, and the same thing with Chief Thompson. People know how I feel about her and how close I am to her. That filters down from the top down, and when that happens, everybody works and plays well together. And I think that's really significant. And if our county enjoys really good prosecutorial numbers and data, it's because of the hard work of law enforcement as well, not just of the lawyers and prosecutors in my office, but because of the hard work of your people and the city as well. So that's always needs to be pointed out to the public. We have done a lot of good things. We talked about that license restoration program. We also started a program here, the first of its kind, when we were dealing with heroin, opioid, and alcohol as a big problem. I went and partnered with a pharmaceutical company named Alkermes that produces a drug called Vivitrol. And, of course, you're aware of this because you allowed me to go into the jail and address the jail population that was addicted to heroin, opioid, and alcohol. And Alkermes, the pharmaceutical company that I partnered with, produces a drug. It's an injection that if you receive the injection, it blocks your ability to get high or drunk off those drugs that I just mentioned. The Forsyth County commissioners stepped up to the plate, gave me $250,000 because each one of those injections cost $1,200. Okay, and the reason I'm telling you this is because when we rolled this program out, and I told anybody that wanted to participate in this program, if you participate in this program and you successfully complete it, I'm going to dismiss your charges against you. So we just finished the end of our first fiscal year here this past summer, and I'm amazed to tell you about the success that this program has seen, that everybody in that program is testing clean. Everybody in that program has a job. Everybody in that program has had no new contacts with law enforcement.
That's awesome.
Which is just, it's incredible. And, I initially was getting some pushback when people were saying, well, this seems to be just people are interested in this heroin and opioid epidemic because it really is just applying to the white population.
Mm-hmm.
But the data, of course, from the FBI shows a much different reality, which is in the African-American community, especially in a place like Washington, D.C., they had like 140% jump in overdose deaths. And so heroin, opioid, alcohol, it affects every race. It affects every financial and crosses over every economic and financial barrier and border you can think of. So it's something that helps everybody. So this program, and my friend Susan Fry, who helped me put this together, our former clerk of court, has been, nothing short of amazing. And now down in Raleigh, when people look at Forsyth County, they're trying to duplicate our efforts on this epidemic, or our approach to this epidemic. They're trying to duplicate our efforts as it relates to the license restoration program. And so we have been at the forefront of a lot of really great ideas for people in our community that are designed to help people as opposed to hurt people. And we're always going to be tough on violent crime. I mean, that's my pledge to the community. We're always going to be tough on that. But when it comes to other things, we also are in a position, as you say, the Minister of Justice, what's just in terms of trying to help somebody get a driver's license back, or what's just in terms of trying to help somebody break an addiction. So we try very hard, and I think that our successes are now seen across the state as things willing to replicate, which makes me happy because I want Forsyth County to be on the cutting edge. I want us to be the leaders in these fields, and I want people to watch our successes and duplicate what we do.
I like that. My phone was beeping when you were talking, and I didn't get a chance to look at it. But as I look at it, one of the things that the question that pops up is this going to be really something that they're looking at as a second chance on life with this expungement? I want people to know that you heard it first here on Off the Cuffs. You didn't hear it on social media. You didn't hear it on print media. You heard it here on Off the Cuffs. That coming soon in this county, in this state, that people will be able to get a second chance. I mean, that right there within itself is a game changer. That right there in itself is a second chance at life, because we do have a population of people who have made mistakes in their life, who can't get jobs. And for you coming on sharing that information, they heard it first here, that says a lot. That's excitement to me, because I know many of people who are denied jobs. We deny people all the time here because of what's on their record. But now the ability to have that expunge and a second chance on life is something short of miraculous. I want to thank you for the work that you do. I want to thank you for all that you do. More importantly, I want to thank you for stopping by. And I appreciate what you said as you were wrapping it up, is that we will combat the violence that we have here. We will continue the partnerships that we have with all the law enforcement agencies in this county and in this middle district, whether it be state, local, and federal. Because what we believe is that that's a force multiplier. And the times in which we're living in, it's all hands on deck. And I like the part about being the minister of justice. We must apply justice fair and balanced, and we must always look at the situation regardless of race, color, creed, or even sexual preference. I want to thank you for stopping by. If you need anything from the Office of the People, please don't hesitate. I appreciate you stopping by, my brother.
Appreciate the good work you're doing here,
Yes,
brother.
sir. Thank you very much.
Yep.